burning. This is back in Malibu.
Oh,
we have aerial. Oh, I'm sorry. Our producer is telling us that this is in Moore Park. This is a separate fire that's burning. KCAL overhead right now. You can see how smoky it is there. It looks like it's not in a residential area. Well, there are some homes right there. So hopefully they are not being threatened. You see some flashing lights of emergency personnel there and how smoky it is. And we just brought you those live pictures of a separate fire in Malibu. Paul Diano been talking about all morning how ferocious these Santa Ana winds are. You can see the actual flames there.
I know.
Burning, and there's a lot of brush to be burned around there.
It's very scary. As Moore Park has such densely, so many trees, so much land. There's so much farmland up there when you drive up. So there's residential gated communities in one section, and this looks like it's in some of that really thick vegetation. You can see a truck there right next to the flames. Not sure if it is maybe somebody who knows this property. Does not look like a firefighter at this point in time, but you can see just the winds and how they're pushing those flames, and that's what gets so scary in these situations. That's why so many people have the power turned off in other areas that are very dense. There's evacuation orders, I'm being told right now from our director. The following evacuation orders are in effect: North Highway 118 to the Ridgeline, west to Satakoy Country Club, and also Walnut Avenue to Balcom Canyon Road. That evacuation order has been issued for Zone 2 is what they're calling it. They have 8 engines that have been requested, any type, for line safety and structure defense. So there are some structures in this area, but yes, being impacted by this fire and the wind.
And that gives us an indication of how quickly it is spreading and has been spreading. We saw that person on the road there. That looks like a very precarious situation, even though the wind is going the opposite direction. He was very close there, and there's not a lot of escape routes around there. So hopefully those people were able to get out. Hopefully they were able to take their belongings. You can see a helicopter earlier overhead, and also there it is again. And a lot of smoke in that area. And you can also see the actual flames still burning. Well, and the wind is very strong.
Yeah, and the concern, obviously, when we have these windy conditions, especially in an area that does have all this thick vegetation, there you see the fire trucks and them kind of getting on scene and getting mobilized to fight this, because you do have so much vegetation. You see the vegetation itself actually moving in the wind, but it doesn't take much for just an ember to move in the wind and spark somewhere new. So you have to be so careful. What we saw with that gentleman standing up against the road, you don't know when the winds can change. They can move the fire. So people really need to take this seriously.
And this looks like it is an agricultural area. You can see the way the trees are lined up there and some of the crops. So this is probably someone's livelihood as well. And look at all that black smoke and the flames just burning. Those have spread even since we got on this just a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, it's what I was talking about earlier. If you remember the Woolsey fire that took place during a Santa Ana wind event, it can just move so quickly, and people can really be surprised by the movement of it. And as you see other flames now here, and this is the biggest concern, is that you start having these spots pop up in multiple areas that firefighters are having to track and fight. You have visibility issues. Also in these types of situations, you did see the helicopter, but sometimes we don't know right now what the case may be, but you can't always get aircraft up, and with these densely vegetated areas, you do need a lot of times aircraft to be able to drop water. So we'll have to see if they get some of those planes up in the air. I do see a number of helicopters now circling.
And this is also not the only fire in Southern California right now. We know that there's also one burning in Malibu, and the concern, as Paul has been talking about all day, is that there's these strong winds are in a lot of the areas. We're talking about possibly losing power and getting shutoffs because of those winds. But this is kind of one of the worst case scenarios, or the beginnings of it, where this is spreading. The wind is still blowing very quickly, and you have multiple fires to deal with now, and we've seen how large this has grown just in the past few minutes.
Well, I'm wondering, is meteorologist Paul Diano available to talk to us? Because I feel like a lot of the wind warnings were further east than some of these. Amber Lee, is Amber available to talk? I'm curious what some of the wind conditions are in this area, because this is further west than we had thought, and now we see a structure on fire.
Yeah, so this is where we have those high wind warnings, and this is why we have the red flag warning. So, all the conditions are favorable. The winds are really drying out our atmosphere. We have the gusty winds, and we also have those warm temperatures. Take a look at the wind gusts. Wind gusts here in Moore Park, 66 miles per hour. So this is where we're seeing some of the strongest winds. You can see Simi Valley right here just to the east, and then a little bit more to the south with Camarillo. So I'm going to zoom out to kind of show you. This is what we've been talking about all morning long. We've been talking about all these winds just funneling in from the northeast, typical textbook style. So this is why we talked about having these high wind warnings. It's so crucial, why fire crews are already on standby and on edge, because they were waiting to see just how gusty these winds were going to get. And you can see it right here. It is just blowing that smoke out toward the coast. And so the vegetation is dry. Again, the winds are really just drying out our atmosphere even more. So that's why you're seeing the hopscotch conditions when we see these Santa Ana winds. So one area is on fire, then it hops to another area. And so that's why you'll see these pockets of flames kind of erupting and all these embers just kind of flying around. So this is what we're dealing with right now. We're going to continue to see windy conditions for the rest of the morning. The good news is that it starts to kind of relax as we head into the latter part of the day. But again, wind advisories, high wind warnings, red flag warnings will continue as we head into the rest of the day into tomorrow morning. I'm also going to show you we do have winds through the Inland Empire, but just not as strong as what we're seeing through Santa Clarita, Simi Valley, and then also Moore Park.
Oh, that's Amber. We want to go ahead. We've been watching on the left-hand side of your screen as you're describing those wind conditions. Ruta Bay pointed out it looks like a barn or maybe a horse facility.
Yeah, I just hope there aren't animals there that couldn't get out. This looks like a farm to me. I'm speculating here, but it looks like a farm with an agricultural area, and I just hope there are no animals that couldn't get out of that structure. And you see how close that is to the nearby home. And we've seen pockets of homes around where these flames are, where they're just kind of encircling this entire area and spreading to different pockets. These embers that we've been talking about spread by the wind and then just erupting in flames with all of this dry brush.
Well, and it's a unique area, Moore Park, because on one end of things you have a business district and you have a lot of homes. People, you know, it's a very quaint area and kind of the downtown part of it, and suburban, and then you have kind of this agricultural area to it. But you see that this building has now flattened to the ground.
Looks like it was a home.
It could have been a home. There's cars out front that also look like they have been overtaken by flames. There'll be speculation, I'm sure, as to how this may have started. People need to be very vigilant on their properties. The power company is going to be looking at power lines to make sure that we don't spark any additional fires. As we've been talking about, this isn't the only fire. There's also a fire in Malibu that is burning right now. It seems to be a smaller fire, but it is burning close to homes and on the south side of PCH. But the pictures you're looking at right now are from Moore Park, and it's one of those things that it is just so concerning, as Amber's talking about the wind conditions continuing throughout the morning, that these embers could get picked up and tossed around to other buildings because there is just so much vegetation in that area.
And you see why from the SkyCal view there is an evacuation order in place. I mean, anyone living or in those buildings right now, in those homes, animals, pets, need to get out right away, because this is spreading very quickly. It is a dangerous thing, especially given how fast these winds are moving, which you just heard, Amber. You see a little cluster of homes right there as well, and some charred hillside there. The smoke, we saw that structure go up in flames with black smoke. Anytime you see black smoke, that's not a good sign. And look at all of the vegetation, that dry vegetation.
We have crew members who live in this area who are giving us information as to what they're hearing from their neighbors. There is an air quality watch now through 4 p.m. Strong Santa Ana winds stirring up high levels of dust throughout most of Ventura County. The level of coarse particulate matter in the air is forecast to reach a level that is unhealthy. So even if you're not in this immediate area being impacted by the flames themselves, it is something you may want to stay indoors today, as this is going to cause a lot of smoke within the region and be just kind of thick overhead. You can see it's impacting visibility as well. But as this is spreading so quickly, we've seen this type of thing happen before. It appears right now, luckily, it is not in one of the gated communities of Moore Park, which take up half of Moore Park. This appears to be in kind of the more rural farm area of the Moore Park area. However, it's so much vegetation, it is just going to spread. The other thing that I get concerned about, you see this roadway. When you drive up into this area, there are so many hills. And I remember my husband and I driving from LA County to Ventura, and I once said, oh, wow, I would not want to be stuck up there in a fire because it would be so hard. And I said, I wonder how hard it is to get deliveries up this way because there are few roads that lead up into that area to be able to get people in and out. So the concern now as well as we see some of these structures, homes, farmland, barns, is getting potentially humans out, animals out, and making sure that people act very, very quickly. We do see a plane. That's a good sign to get water dropped on this. But, you know, when you look at just the amount of fire that is now consuming just the area, it's going to take a lot to get this thing under control.
Those flames have just spread so quickly. This is burning on South Mountain. This is near the 7900 block of Balcom Canyon and Bradley Road. That's according to the Ventura County Fire Department. Strong winds, obviously, we've been talking about that, contributing to these conditions. This is near also the 118 freeway, so there are road closures in effect right now, evacuation orders as well. And this is not what we want to see. This is not a good scenario right now, especially given that these winds are still blowing. And there's another fire just south of here in Malibu. So you see all the emergency personnel there. It looks like they're staging, kind of trying to come up with a plan. But you can see the vegetation blowing around from that shot. You can see how windy it is there. And you can see how quickly the flames have spread at least to 2 structures that we've seen and many other structures in that area. The black smoke, the flames just kind of devouring this very dry vegetation. And again, it's just my observation. It looks like it is an agricultural, maybe like a farm area where it started. There were crops growing and trees that were laid out very specifically, so that's what it looks like to me. But you mentioned that that's a ridge with all of this wild vegetation, not very many ways in, not very many ways out.
You also see the power lines, so this is going to very close to the flames. If the fire hits those power lines, you're going to have a lot of people impacted in that area when it comes to the power situation. This is the area you were talking about, Ruta Bay, where you saw some of the farmland and that type of thing, and it's really what makes Moore Park so beautiful is that you do have these rolling hills and estates really with the farmland and a lot of agricultural area. We do have to get to our 10 o'clock show with Amy Johnson. We're going to continue to monitor this and bring you the very latest throughout the morning.
I want to say goodbye to our CBS viewers now, but we are continuing our coverage on KCAL News. And we are staying on this fire. If you've been watching us, we are staying here, taking a look from KCAL at this breaking news. This is a fire in Moore Park, and this is not the only fire burning in Southern California right now. I want to bring in Amy Johnson.
Thank you, Ruta Bay. We do begin KCAL News at 10 with breaking news out of Moore Park. Firefighters are battling a brush fire on South Mountain. This is near Balcom Canyon and Bradley Road. Strong winds in the area are making containment really difficult. Right now, more than 100 firefighters are on the scene, and if you are in the area, please watch out for emergency vehicles. Now, we do know that a red flag warning went into effect yesterday, and for today, rather, and lasting through Thursday night. And so many of us that live in Ventura County realized that we were going to be dealing with some severe conditions, and I have to say, as I was driving in this morning, it was extremely windy in Ventura County. And it was one of those times, meteorologist Amber Lee joining us now. Also, Amber, it was one of those eerie times where you see and feel this wind and you hope that there are going to be no sparks anywhere because we know how quickly a fire can spread in conditions like this.
Yes, especially when it's that time of year, the Santa Ana winds, we know what type of damage it can do, especially because it dries out our atmosphere. So our conditions right now are favorable for these fire conditions to grow, and that's exactly what we're seeing right there. So I just want to show you really quick on the right side of your screen, this is our next weather wind gust. You can see that this is the reason why not only we have high wind warnings, wind advisories, and red flag warnings in Southern California, it's because we were talking about this second round of Santa Ana winds, and this one much more fierce than what we saw earlier in the week. So right now, our gusts in Moore Park is at 66 miles per hour, and at times we could see it in some parts up to 80. But the good news is that I'm looking at the futurecast, looking at when the winds start to relax, and it's going to begin to relax in the next couple of hours. But right now, we're kind of in the peak of the wind gusts. So you can see just to the east of Moore Park, Simi Valley's also clocking in gusts in the mid 60s. 60s. Now, I do want to show you, I'm going to pull out so you kind of see what I'm talking about. These winds are coming in from the northeast. We had a really cold air mass. We're in between two systems right now, so this is what's generating these really strong Santa Ana winds. As these winds come in through the canyons and passes, it blows out even stronger into areas like Santa Clarita and Simi Valley. So this is why that fire is moving so fast. And then because of these Santa Ana winds, the winds are picking up the embers, and we're going to see this hopscotch type of fashion, type of pattern that we normally would see with these Santa Ana winds. And so this is what we're seeing at the moment, and you can see how the winds are laying down the smoke that is, and that shows you how strong the wind gusts are. So not only is it windy in this area, but we're also looking at those wind gusts picking up in Malibu as well, and then also in the Inland Empire. But I also want to show you what the winds are doing. The winds are drying out our atmosphere. The dew point, another good form of moisture measurement in our atmosphere, should be in the mid-50s here in Southern California. Look how dry it is. We're talking teens for Simi Valley, 20s in Moore Park, and then even a little bit more east toward Burbank, we're down into the single digits. So this is why we have that red flag warning, extreme fire danger issued through tomorrow as these winds continue to stick around until then. And then this is what the dew point looks like across Southern California. So it is dry, bone dry. And that's why fire crews have all been on edge waiting for this event to happen. But the good news, as I mentioned, in the next couple of hours, we should start to see the winds kind of relax a little bit, but it's still going to be windy, but just not as windy as what we're dealing with right now, Amy.
And of course, the dry conditions, as you were mentioning, Amber, really making it difficult. We haven't had rain in a very long time. There's a lot of brush out there, and you know, a lot of people have been fearing the Santa Ana winds and what they bring with them, the threat of fire.
Yeah, and luckily the fire crews were also prepared for this. They actually put in place 2 task forces, the Ventura County Fire Agency, to handle any kind of brush fires. It's something when we hear about these winds and this type of forecast, we're prepared too. And sadly, in Southern California with these dry conditions, it is something that we hope doesn't happen, but we know that it is a possibility, can happen. And indeed it has. At least 2 fires burning at this hour in Southern California, one in the Camarillo area that we're looking at, Moore Park, and then the other one in Malibu. We do know that power outages have been reported. There are evacuation orders in place. There was a red flag warning in effect yesterday, and there are more than 100 firefighters on scene of this particular fire right now. That's according to the Ventura County Star, who is putting out information right there. There is a shelter set up at Padre Serra Parish, and that is in the Camarillo area, because we know that these people need to get out of this neighborhood right away. We've already seen at least 2 structures go up in flames, and very, very quickly.
Yeah, a site that does risk assessment on properties says there's about 12,000 properties in Moore Park that have the risk of being affected by wildfire. That was a risk assessment that was done looking at the next 30 years, looking at the amount of vegetation, looking at how wind conditions hit this area. This is an area too that has it has grown in terms of population. It's you know, people have moved out to this area. There's a business district. There's an area of a number of gated homes. People love going out here, I know too, to hike. As you see all these ridges and canyons, it is absolutely a beautiful part of our Southern California area. But this is the potential risk that can happen, is when these winds take just you know, fire starts and the winds are gusting as much as they are, as Amber Lee has been showing us this morning, that embers get picked up, they get moved. You can see the visibility getting worse in that area. There's also potential for people who are sensitive to air quality issues. This is going to obviously impact a lot of Ventura County as firefighters continue to try to get this fire under control, and hopefully, as meteorologist Amber Lee says, within the next couple of hours. But there can be a lot of damage done in a couple hours.
And what we have seen since we now have fire season year-round, fire crews really try to hit these fires quickly and as hard as possible to knock them out as quickly as possible. But the unfortunate situation here is that we have multiple fires, which means the resources are spread out. So you can't hit the fire in Moore Park as hard because many of those crews are now in Malibu fighting the fire there. So they are sharing the resources, and that means, unfortunately, not as many boots on the ground there working on this fire. And with the winds, I don't know if we've seen any helicopters out there.
There were a few before you were coming out here, Amy. There were a couple. And we did see one plane at one point in time. But yeah, that's the fear, right? Is that the aircraft not going to be able to get up and mobilize quickly to get this under control. You see some of this white smoke. That's a little bit better sign that maybe they're getting some situations under control. But you can see all this agricultural, these vehicles and all this, these buildings. And it is reminding me, I covered the Woolsey fire and just how quickly that spread in the Santa Ana winds, and also people having to get their livestock and horses out just as quickly as possible. That's very hard to do. So while people were warned that there was a red flag warning, you can immobilize as best you can. But if these fires pop up right at your property, it's so difficult to try to get everything and get out, especially in this area where you see it is just so hilly and so inconvenient to try to get up to some of these properties by road.
Absolutely. And on the right side of your screen, you are seeing the public safety power shutoff map. This is where we have been focusing, in fact, the last couple of days. I know that Mark Liu was showing us just yesterday some of the areas that were going to be at risk of losing their power. Of course, we are seeing this now, and this is all in an effort to, make this area safer, in that the high winds could actually knock down power lines, sparking fires. We've seen that, unfortunately, in the past. And so as a precaution, they were shutting down some of the power. But you can see there on the left side of your screen that fire, very active flames. We do know that at least 2 structures have burned in this fire so far.